Good afternoon. Today I want to talk about a feeling. It's the feeling you get when you know the right thing to do, yet do something different. Perhaps you'd be put in danger if you did the right thing. Perhaps there was money or status or approval from your family that depended on doing the wrong thing. I'm sure you don't like that feeling. I certainly don't. It feels like a few things. Maybe guilt, maybe shame, maybe fear, maybe anger. I don't have a great word for this feeling. Today I'm going to call it the muck. I'm going to talk about the muck I faced in my working life and the terrifying moment that reminded me that life is precious, short, and fragile. I'll offer a couple practical tools to put some distance between yourself and the muck in your life, so that the next time it comes for you, you'll be in a better position to say, no thanks, I'm good. Thinking back on my life, my conscience, a sense of right and wrong, always meant a lot to me. But I've also always been a practical and cautious person, a son of immigrants who never took food on the table for granted. I carefully managed the tension between integrity and practicality in my life, trying to find a way to both be part of a future I believed in while also making ends meet. I still feel good about both of those instincts, but I underestimated the forces that make this hard to do. I underestimated the muck. As a kid, I found myself really good at chemistry. By the end of high school, I dreamed of being a chemistry professor. I felt inspired by the chance to learn new things about the world and share them with others. I thought it would be practical enough. I wouldn't get rich, but I would make ends meet and do something honorable with myself. I got surprisingly close. I went to Caltech, majored in chemistry. It was way too hard, but I did okay. I got into a bunch of nice PhD programs with a stack of fancy fellowships. But I learned something dark about science in grad school. Discovering new things requires a lot of luck. And science is very competitive. It's overstaffed with very ambitious people with a lot on the line. Often their immigration status. Down in the sub-basements where physical chemists live, stories of fraud started to pile up by the water cooler. Complete fabrications that launched a stream of star-studded, fictitious journal articles. The perpetrators now confidently protected in hotshot professor jobs. Behind them, an avalanche of muck. No one could call it out. If you call it out, it would bring you down. It would bring innocent colleagues down. And I saw friends spend months and years of toil to sift the truth from the lies for private eyes only, have so little to show for themselves publicly that they'd have to shuffle off to a new career. I was able to save my PhD. I'm proud of my dissertation, but honestly, I lost my taste for science. I cast about in my last year and figured out how to change careers. I got back to managing that tension between integrity and practicality. I'd picked up some programming skills in the second half of my PhD, and over 3 jobs, I refashioned myself into a data scientist. I felt inspired by the chance to help people see reality more clearly, use that clarity to do better. I love that about data science, still do. That didn't mean the muck was gone. The private sector makes you an expert rationalizer. Corporations will tell amazing narratives of purpose, but deep down, when you look close, when you see the way the decisions fall, corporate life is always the business of making rich people richer. So that's where I was on New Year's Eve 2017, a day that my life took an unexpected turn. I was drowning in the muck, dragging myself to downtown Chicago day after day so that a 401k match would vest. I'd just gotten home from Texas, visiting my family, and my fridge was empty, so I went out to get some groceries. 6 p.m., about 10 degrees. I was wearing a parka with the hood up, coming home with my groceries, and as I went to turn the key to my back door gate, the profanities and blows started to rain down on me. It's funny what I remember and don't remember about that moment. I don't remember my attackers well. I can't even tell you whether there were 2 or 3 of them. I remember the car, a beat-up old off-white American jalopy, maybe an Oldsmobile. I remember the gun they pointed at me. It was a black, medium-frame, semi-automatic handgun, maybe a Glock. I've long kept my cash in a high-visibility coin purse dominant side. This is my mug money. I strongly recommend this. I had been ready for this moment. I threw it. This is all I got. I turned to run. They pulled me back by the backpack, wailed on me a little bit more. You can have the backpack. I had to unbuckle the chest strap, so they got my groceries too. I sprinted around the building, went in the front gate, called 911 to file a pointless police report. When putting this talk together, I tried to figure out some deep insight that grew out of that day, and I'm not sure if I have any. I know that for a while I was scared to be in my home. And for a few days I cowered in my apartment with my bruises and no groceries. But eventually I got too hungry. I tiptoed out to pick up an entire deep dish Chicago pizza. Maybe I learned that when you get punched enough times, there's eventually nothing left to do but punch back. I think I was certainly reminded by life that it's precious, short, and fragile, and that if you're going to make a change, you might as well make it boldly, even if your immigrant parents absolutely freak out. After the robbery, things moved quickly. I got my 401k match, 2 months later my annual bonus, and I quit that corporate job by March. By May, I'd landed 1,000 miles from Chicago in the first home I owned. It was me, a pile of boxes, no air conditioning, no car, not knowing anyone, in a super cheap house in a scrappy corner of Pawtucket, Rhode Island, a state which, before the robbery, I'd never set foot in. And so I became an independent data scientist. That didn't mean the muck was gone. Consulting can be one of the muckiest things ever, convincing corporations that the terrible things they're doing in the world are actually good. But I'm a one-man band. I don't have to make payroll. And when push comes to shove with a mucky client on a mucky project, I can now say, you know, no thanks. I'm good. These days I help local governments measure their operations and help their technology fit together. I think I landed on that because career public servants are my favorite people so far. I get to help them learn and grow and face their own muck. It's a true gift to work with people who have dedicated their lives to helping others. I can't tell you how this chapter will end. I can tell you that March 6th was my 5th anniversary of independence, and I'm still here. There are a lot of things that are hard about independence. What might make my story sound most like a fantasy is the money. Especially toward the beginning, a lot more can go out than come in. You need savings. I feel immensely privileged this way. A huge thing is that my parents paid for my college. I had no student loans. And then the government paid for me a small stipend to train as a chemist. If I had big student loan payments or kids to feed, I might have had to make peace with more muck in my life. It's only fair to get in line for a paycheck if you have to take care of loved ones. Still, I think there are ways that anyone can buy more distance for the muck. First, if your standard of living goes up, you grow to expect it. If your standard of living goes down, that is absolute torture. So keep your standard of living the same. I did a couple favors for myself in my 12 years in Chicago. Instead of upgrading to shinier and shinier apartments, I always lived in beat-up ones. I renovated them myself, even as a renter. People said I was crazy for renovating apartments I didn't own, but it kept my rent low. Secondly, I never got a car. I kept taking public transit. And little by little, that added up to the capital I needed to be independent one day. Second, the cost of housing has a huge impact on the muck you have to accept into your life. I couldn't do what I'm doing right now in New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston. I might have been able to do it in Chicago, barely, I couldn't do today what I did 5 years ago in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. That place is gentrified a lot. Today I had to look elsewhere. The neighborhoods where you can best follow your conscience are the neighborhoods people scrunch their noses at. Well, the hard part about that is that the neighborhoods that are really expensive are the ones where you meet the brilliant people who help you learn and grow and become productive. So I keep contradicting myself. I hope you never have to experience an armed robbery. If you do, carry your mug money. Speaking of which. But life will bring you plenty of reminders that it is precious, short, and fragile. I'm sorry to say you'll have to experience the muck. The muck is just part of being human in a world of humans. By keeping my cost of living the same, and by eventually escaping to an affordable city, I was able finally one day to put my foot down and say, no thanks. I'm good. Perhaps the same frugality could help you too. There is nothing I believe in more than the conscience of a young person. Be bold, listen to your conscience, and punch back. Thanks.